Hold up, why do they doubt the kid? I'm about to prove them all wrong again. I got a low tolerance, cause they don't even know what the problem is. It's me. You waiting on the boy to fail, then hold your breath and face your death. Cause you play the roulette with each step. I progress, no less. Go ahead and place your bet.
Welcome back, y'all. This is the Miscellaneous Minds Podcast. I'm your host, Jesus Dinero, here with my co-host,
Puma El Gato.
What do we got going on tonight, my man?
Caleb Plant wanting all the smoke against Edgar Berlanga and Jermal Charlo. Let's talk about it.
As some of you guys may know, Caleb Plant and Jermal Charlo are going to be fighting on the same card May 31st. And it's expected that sometime later on in the year, they're actually going to go up against each other. On top of that beef, Edgar Berlanga has been throwing a lot of shade towards Caleb Plant, telling him you ain't no boss. You got your man, I believe it was PBC he mentioned, as you're above you, you take orders from them, so on and so forth. And Caleb Plant responding, basically saying that he does want the smoke with Edgar Berlanga as well. Listen, I think both of these matches would be great matches to make. I want to see Jermal Charlo and Caleb Plant. They've been beefing it for a very long time as well. That'd be a really good match. I think it's a good match for both of them, given both of them are coming from not so great recent events. Obviously, we all know Jermal Charlo has been going through it with the law, going through it with a lot of the family drama, a lot of the BS that's going on in his background. So he kind of needs something to get him back in the headlines in a good way, right? And, of course, Caleb Plant coming off those losses. One to Canelo, one to Dave Benavidez. I know he fought Trevor McCumbee, and he got that dub against Trevor McCumbee. But, no disrespect, Trevor McCumbee is not one of those top names. So getting another good name like a Jermal Charlo would be really good for the stock of Caleb Plant. At the same time, while all this is going on, Edgar Berlanga is throwing a lot of shade at Caleb Plant, telling him he wants to smoke as well. And I'll be honest with you, I think this is a great fight as well. If I'm being honest with you, in both of those matches, I would probably lean a little bit towards favoring Caleb Plant more. Although I do think Jermal Charlo brings a little bit more of a fight than does an Edgar Berlanga. Other than Canelo Alvarez, Edgar Berlanga hasn't really faced anybody of note, at least. In his last fight, he fought, what everybody was deeming a nobody. And to be fair, he is kind of a nobody. As a step up in competition, so to speak, this would be a good fight for Edgar Berlanga, but I do favor Caleb Plant in that. Not only has Caleb Plant shown that he can go toe-to-toe with some of the top talent, even though he did lose against them, that experience that he's gained with that top talent really shows that he's got a much better pedigree than does an Edgar Berlanga. If I'm being honest with you, I'm not super impressed with Edgar Berlanga, and I don't mean to, when I say these things, I don't want to disrespect the boxers because I like these boxers. They go in there and they give it their all. But if we're gonna be honest about about Edgar Berlanga's fight record, he doesn't really have a whole lot of people on there. All the people that he's beat, and I know there was he beat everybody in the first round, yeah, but there was a bunch of nobodies. And again, no disrespect to any of the boxers, it just wasn't that top tier, high level names. The only top tier, high level name that he went up against he lost. So, with that being said, either way, I do think it's a good match for Edgar Berlanga to show that, hey, I can hang in there with the, top tier talent. Because, like Caleb Plant or not, he is one of the big names in there. He is one of the higher rated fighters in that division. That being said, listen, Jermal Charlo has been a good name for a very long time. Yes, he has a lot of faults. He did a lot of shady things in his own personal life that didn't put him in the best light. But listen, I think this is a great fight no matter what, because despite how people feel about Jermal in his personal life, as a boxer, he's a good boxer. So I do think a fight between Jermal Charlo and Caleb Plant would be great. I personally, again, would favor a Caleb Plant only because he has better names, only because he has more recent experiences, only because he has a good amount of track record when it comes to his higher name level fights. Again, Jermal Charlo has been out for quite some time now, and unfortunately for him and his brother, it's not been good for their career, and because of that, I would favor a Caleb Plant. Now, of course, they're both going to be fighting in on the same card, so this is a good tune-up fight for Jermal to hopefully get that working with Caleb Plant down later in the year. And listen, for Edgar Berlanga, it's a good step up in competition from what he's normally facing. Although, again, I still personally would favor Caleb Plant because of everything I listed before. Better competition. He's hung in there with some of the big dogs at 168. He's a better pedigree of fighter, in my personal opinion, than is an Edgar Berlanga. But, yeah, man, I would dig either one of these fights being made. I think it'd be great for everybody involved. Everybody gets a good name on the resume. Everybody gets some good work. These are all dudes that are going to go in there and not necessarily brawl it out, because Jermal wouldn't call necessarily a brawler, but he does go in there to show a good amount of action, and I think we could pull it off in a good fashion, in firework fight with a Caleb Plant, even though, again, I personally would favor Caleb Plant in both of these matches. But hey, listen, it's boxing. I would not be surprised at all if one of the other two dudes, Jermal or Edgar Berlanga, pulled up an upset. You never know. You just truly never know. But what do you think about that, my man?
I think looking at the caliber of these potential fighters that we have right here, whether it's going to be Caleb Plant versus Edgar Berlanga or Caleb Plant versus Jermal Charlo, I personally would think the better fight, where you would see a better exposition between the two, would actually be Jermal Charlo and Caleb Plant. Again, because I feel like both of them would have the longest experience to actually match each other as much as they can. I do think Caleb Plant would definitely be the better of the two. And I understand people are going to say, okay, well, yeah, Caleb Plant has 2 losses on a record, and Jermal Charlo doesn't have any. And my argument for that is, yeah, but his 2 losses were a TKO loss to Canelo Alvarez and also a UD loss to Dave Benavidez. And look, him holding on for as long as he could during the Canelo fight and also hanging on to a UD loss against David Benavidez, that just shows me that Caleb Plant has a hell of a chin to contend against 2 of the monsters of the middleweight division. No pun intended for Dave Benavidez, and fighting up against somebody that's basically undisputed at middleweight for the longest time. I do think Caleb Plant does have a lot to actually defend against Jermal Charlo. And to give a little bit of credit to Jermal Charlo, the win against Jose Benavidez, even though it didn't look that great, the fact that he still came off that, what was it, a couple years hiatus that he went into that fight, and he looked deceptively better than anybody should give him credit for. So I'll at least give him a little bit of credit there. Edgar Berlanga is still a bit of a young buck. He's still got a lot to prove. And again, yeah, the Canelo Alvarez loss, I mean, yeah, that's 1 loss. So the argument that I would have for Caleb Plant, the loss against Canelo Alvarez not meaning much, because again, it's a Canelo Alvarez fight. Like, it was gonna be a toss up whether or not he was gonna win that fight anyway. But I do think Edgar Berlanga still has a lot of time before he has to really cut his teeth into anybody of note. And I think if the Caleb Plant fight does get made, it definitely would be a great opportunity for Edgar Berlanga. I don't necessarily think he deserves it that much, especially if we're going to argue that he didn't deserve the Canelo Alvarez fight. But if he does get that shot, hey, good for him. But my thing at the end of the day is, of the 2 fights, I would prefer the Caleb Plant one. And I do think in the grand scheme of things, given that Caleb Plant hasn't exactly let his foot off of the gas, and Jermal Charlo, again, had that hiatus in his fight experience, I do think for Caleb Plant, it is definitely going to be a bit more of a easier fight, easier W for him. No, sorry, let me back that up. I do think Caleb Plant is going to have his work cut out for him, but I do think it's still going to be a sure win for him. If he goes up against Edgar Berlanga, it absolutely is going to be an absolute W for him. But what do you think my analysis of the potential of these fights going in?
Yeah, man, listen, I do think that I agree with you that Jermal Charlo's the better of those 2 fights, because Jermal Charlo has much better experience than does an Edgar Berlanga. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and try and flame up Charlo's record, because it's not that good, if I'm being honest with you. I'm not saying it's a phenomenal record, but I do think he has better names on there. Again, you mentioned one, Jose Benavidez, those types of names. So I do think those are decent names to have on there, although it's not that top tier that I'd like to see with phenomenal names on it. But again, I do think his record is better than Edgar Berlanga's. If I'm being honest with you, this is going to sound super fucked up. I think Edgar Berlanga is, in my personal eyes, at best a good prospect. Maybe a little bit above a prospect, because I don't know, man. He just doesn't. He's beat a bunch of nobodies, and again, no disrespect to anybody that he's beat, but he just doesn't have that top tier name. I will say he has a little bit of a buzz, especially because he has a lot of Latinos in New York and all that kind of stuff buzzing for him, because he's a Latino himself. So respect to that. I'm not trying to put the man down, but he just doesn't have that good of a record. And while Jermal Charlo does have a better record, it's not phenomenal either. And that's why, again, I would personally pick Caleb Plant to win this. Now, the one thing I will say, obviously, is Caleb Plant seems to flame out right around the 6th or 7th round. And that worries me a little bit just because I do believe Charlo has a little bit better stamina in that particular aspect of it, and maybe Edgar Berlanga does too. So that's the only fault that I could really find as far as Caleb Plant against either one of these guys. But other than that, yeah, I think it'll be a good W for Caleb Plant's record either way. But listen, I'm not counting either Edgar Berlanga or Jermal Charlo out because it's boxing, man. You never know. All it takes is really one good punch at the right moment, and it's lights out for anybody. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. None of these guys are phenomenal knockout punchers. Again, I know a lot of people say, "Oh, Edgar Berlanga, 16 wins, 16 knockouts first round," but against nobody's. So I'm personally not counting him as a phenomenal puncher. But listen, we'll see how it goes. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm going to tune in May 31st just to see what goes on with these two fights. That way I can kind of get an idea of what to look forward to later on in the year for a Jermal Charlo and a Caleb Plant fight. But listen, this fight, if this fight does happen, which is basically, we're all believing it's going to happen based on what's been said, Jermal Charlo and Caleb Plant has been brewing for a long time. So I'm actually pulling more for that fight than I am for the Edgar Berlanga fight. But either way, we'll see. It'll be a good fight to watch with either one of these guys. I personally prefer Jermal Charlo because I think it'll be a better matchup, better fight. But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting, and we will definitely keep you guys tuned. And with that, make sure to like, comment, hate, subscribe, DM us about the bullshit, and
Until next time, get rest and stay blessed. We'll see you in the next one.